You're listening to Bookin' Around Town with Jacques on the audio flow.
Hey everybody, welcome to Bookin' Around Town. I am your host Jacques and so excited and happy to be here with you guys today. As usual, I love my job and I love that I am able to connect and meet new authors, read their books, and invite you to learn more about them as well. Today's special guest is has released her debut novel, The Dating Bender, and I'm excited to chat with her about how she came up with the concept of the book and everything that deals with dating, which is a lot of fun. Today's guest is Christina Julian, who writes snarky rom-coms that celebrate the underdog and live to make people laugh. She adores dysfunctional leading ladies and the tangled, twisty lives they lead. She adamantly believes there is nothing in life that can't be conquered with a bodacious wine, I agree with that, a strong cup of coffee, also agree with that, or a generously iced cupcake. Who doesn't like cupcakes? When she is not tapping out her next novel or wrangling her 3-year-old twins, she can be found swilling and swirling in the name of research of a wine and food columnist in Napa Valley. She strives always to live her life to the extreme. I am so excited to have her on the show. I'm very excited to have Christina on the show, especially because she is a wine columnist. So that makes me happy. Welcome to the show, Christina. How are you?
I'm good, Jacques. How are you?
I'm doing well. Thank you very much. Well, first, I want to tell you congratulations. We got the little hand clap sound effect here. Congratulations on the debut of your first novel, The Dating Bender. How are you feeling about it now that it's released out into the world?
I'm excited. I am super excited. And I also, I have panic. I have excitement. It's like, it's very cool. And then it's also like, wow, it is out there. I hope people like it.
Yeah, you kind of got every emotion going on right now, right?
Yes, it is. It's definitely a big teeter-totter of emotions. But it is super, as a writer, you kind of, replay this little loop in your head forever while after you've written it and you're trying to shop it around. And so, yeah, for it actually to be happening is really pretty cool.
Well, that's amazing. So I'd like to know a little bit about the process that you went through from conception of The Dating Bender to actually, putting it on paper and getting it out there. What was kind of your thoughts behind writing this particular book, or what influenced this particular book?
Yeah, I didn't initially start out to write a book per se. It sort of came about somewhat haphazardly, which is a little bit for the good or bad how I roll in life. But it started out, I was living in LA at the time, and I had lived in New York City for a time, and I was single and living all those, kind of single heyday cliches and whatnot. And, and in living in both of those two places, I like to say they're both either kind of the best dating capital of the country or the worst, depending on how you're looking at it and who you're talking to.
Right.
And so let's just say that there were a lot of crazy, just crazy dates, scenarios that had happened, things that had happened to friends. You couldn't make this sort of stuff up. I could regale you with some of these stories, but just crazy kind of things. And I started just thinking like, I have to write this down or I'm going to forget it. So I just started kind of writing down, when really noteworthy ones would happen. I would just kind of jot it down, and they were all, in hindsight, pretty funny scenarios. And so I just was kind of doing that. And at the same time, I was raised in a pretty Catholic upbringing. It was we were Catholic. I say now I'm like a recovering Catholic because I'm still Catholic, but I'm kind of, I'm recovering from the bloodshed that is being raised in that kind of environment. And it's sort of, it kind of wreaks havoc on the whole sex before marriage and all those things that you're sort of kind of ingrained with as a young child growing up Catholic.
Right.
And so that sort of collides with the whole sexy dating scene. And so the more that I was thinking about the craziness of the dating scene and then the contrast of that sort of, what you're taught from a young age about as far as sex goes when you're raised Catholic or other kind of stricter religious upbringings. And I just sort of thought, this is kind of, an interesting dynamic. And then I wrote an essay called Fire Your Family. And it was a funny sort of bit about just that. Can you ever really, if you're brought up in a sort of dysfunctional scenario, can you ever hand your family a pink slip and say, try to put them in their place and say, until you shape up, I'm shipping you out kind of thing. And then I kind of realized this could be a funny premise for a book. And so that's sort of how it began, a series of essays. And then I realized, I think there's a story here. And then I started sort of shaping it together.
I like that. And just so people know, in the book, it's pretty funny, but in the beginning has a sort of serious connotation to it, I would say, because as it relates to the main character and the relationship after, she enters into this marriage and some things kind of happen that kind of led to the other parts of the book. But,
right.
and so I like that you put that spin on it, or that you gave that information up front that kind of led versus, starting with these dates. It kind of, started with, okay, this is what happened, and now I'm breaking out of that shell, and this is what I'm, getting into. So what was the idea behind starting it with that point of kind of, I'm going to say lackluster and lackluster marriage, along with some other stuff in there that really made me hate Sheldon. I'm just saying.
Yeah. I know. He was not the best guy to start out with for her. Well, I like to say when I talk about the book and kind of how it came about that, it begins with the woman who is just unhinged and at a crossroad. Like Samantha is just her life is kind of exploding, and it's happening at her wedding, and she is basically I felt like, for one, I like the idea of a shotgun wedding at the beginning, just boom, you're in the throes of it, and this wedding is going horribly off the rails at the get-go, and to kind of introduce the reader to the fact of that, there's a reason she's maybe getting married to not necessarily the best person for her, but she's trying to get out of the madness. And I wanted it to be clear that her life and her family life are kind of are falling apart, and she's getting married as a way out. And, for kind of all the wrong reasons she's getting married. And hopefully that was the intent that people see, the dating bender isn't just, she didn't just go out and say, oh, I want to have tons of sex all over the place and travel to all these fabulous cities and whatever. It's kind of she set out to go after her happily ever after. She wanted the happy ending. She wanted to build a family of her own. And it just went not at all, kind of like life, not at all according to her plan. It's her plan and that sort of Catholic mindset, married, forever, you're together forever, in good and bad, you kind of stick it out. And unfortunately, from the get-go, as early as the wedding itself, she is realizing this is not, it's not a good scene for her.
And that's all we could tell everybody.
And I So it was kind of that intention to just, for one, start things off with a bang, and that a wedding, usually people have this idea of the perfect wedding and, and everything that goes with it. And this is sort of the opposite of that. I also say, she's a hot mess. I mean, she's, I consider myself, I'm a little bit of a hot mess, and I have, days that I'm more of that than the other. Samantha's definitely a hot mess to the highest order, but she's fighting, really hard not to be, and her family is not necessarily helping her, in the right direction, but pushing her into the opposite direction.
Yeah. that her family's very dysfunctional. I mean, which equals normal,
Yes.
because most of our families are dysfunctional, aka normal. So
Right.
so what I like about this story is that, again, it's relatable. And you mentioned that, with your background in Catholicism, and a lot of people, I would say a lot of people have grown up in some type of religious background that teaches certain principles and things like that. And as we get older, sometimes we separate from those. And,
Right.
And this story, I like that. Again, it can relate to so many people, even from the beginning part, or that 1 year later, we've been married 1 year later type thing, and
Right.
and just some parts of it. So now that you have this book out, I did see the clip that it is listed as a perfect beach read, which I will agree with. It is even though summer's almost over, unless you're in California.
I know.
Lucky people.
Yeah.
It's not a beach read for us anymore. Now it's more like in the house by the fireplace kind of read.
Right. Yeah, it's one of those. Yeah, I think as you were kind of saying, it definitely has those light kind of fun. Hopefully there's a lot of comedy. People seeing the situations are over the top at times, a lot of times. But then there's some serious things going on, kind of in the midst of that. So
Right.
I think it has that sort of spirit of a beach read, but also there's other stuff going on. So I do think it has the brooding winter side also.
Yes, and I like when you said that you took these stories from people who've kind of gone through the whole dating thing, and really you can't make these things up. I will agree with you, because I attempted the whole online dating thing at the beginning of this year, and I had a Facebook group, and I was just going to chat and tell everybody what was going on. And like, you just can't, some of those things you just can't make up, and you wish that your imagination reached that far, but you're like, no,
Right.
I just can't. So as far as your dating background, can you kind of remember an instance or a situation where it was just so way out there that you just said, I can't make this up, but yeah, this is what happened?
Yeah. I've had several, but one of my kind of favorite, just crazy ones, and there's so many to pick from. It really is hard to narrow it down. But one of my favorites, one of the worst favorites, is I had a friend. This is when I was living in LA, and there's just a lot of the things that go down in LA. It's just an alternate universe in some ways.
Yes.
But I had I had a very well-intentioned friend. They always are very well-intentioned. Husband say that they had just gotten married, and of course they, felt like I needed to, find a happy, great guy and whatnot myself. So anyway, he said, I have a great guy for you. He's great. He's like a good age for you, and he has a job, and he's not an actor, and and I said, all right, okay, sure, I will give it a whirl. And I get picked up. I'm living in Venice Beach at the time.
Okay.
And he picks me up in a stretched limo, which I guess for some people that would be like, oh my God, Prince Charming is showing up in his chariot to take me into this wonderful date. For me, it was a little bit of a cause for pause of like, wow, this is a first date. And then he showed up in a limo, and he was wearing a kind of a satin silk leopard print shirt with these kind of satiny pants that sort of looked like they matched the interior of the limo, which, it all, I was like, oh boy. And I have to say, if it had been like an online date or just sort of a random run-in, I would have probably been like, bailed out. But it was a friend, so I felt like, okay, I need to see this out. I'm going to see it out and hope for the best. And I'll cut through all the sort of ups and downs of the night. But the highlight is that he whisked me from the west side of town in Venice and Santa Monica into Hollywood, and we stopped at 4 or 5 different bars and lounges and all these kind of cool, fabulous places along the way. But every time we got to a new place, he would disappear for a period of anywhere from 10 minutes to like 40 minutes. And he would come back in as if nothing had happened, wearing a completely different outfit. And he proceeded to change throughout the night with really no explanation of why he was changing. But yeah, I don't know what was going on, but yeah, and then he ended the night in this outfit that he had on one of those kind of Ashton Kutcher trucker style baseball hats, and sort of a train conductor shirt, and it just yeah. So that was one of the just like, really and I kind of felt like, is Aston gonna like pop out of the bushes and punk me, because really I just and he would have a matching baseball hat on, but yeah.
This is one of those things you say, I just can't make this up. I just can't.
Right, yeah, and I have to say, the next day, I was like, for sure my friend's husband was going to be like, hey, how'd it go? And I just, in my mind, and my friend's husband, he's a really cool guy. And and I just was like, I just wondered, how well does he know this guy? Because it was, so anyway, that was kind of it was very funny. Even as it was going on, it was just so out there that I just was like, this is the LA is just, it's a constant source of entertainment in the literal and metaphorical sense. It's there's no place quite like it.
I can't even imagine. First I see the limo, I'm like, he's definitely compensating for something, because
right.
He just come in a regular car. Then he has on his Hugh Hefner pajama pants. So,
right, yeah, exactly. Yes,
I mean, and then he had to pull a Diana Ross and change at every stop. So I mean,
I know.
Maybe you did get punked and they just, I don't know.
I know.
Your friend's husband not only needed to know that guy better, but really, how well did he know you to think you would want to...
Right. Yeah.
What's up with that?
Yeah. I know. I was like, really? This is who you envision me with for the rest of my life? Wow. I'm going to have a crazy life.
I can't... Now, since you said that, it just made me think of like Steve Martin, Wild and Crazy Guys or something.
Yeah, I know. It's, and there are more of those tales. Believe me, in New York, there were like so many things, that had, and that's what people ask me about the book all the time. One of their first questions is always like, is this your life story? And I say, no, this is not my life story. If this were my life story, wow, I would have had quite a life. But, I did take little bits and, I kind of would take a kernel of something that happened to me or my girlfriend. And we were all single at the time. And so we would know, oh, we're all going out with someone or whatever. And so at the end of the week, we would all get together over wine and much wine and drinking and food and whatnot, and just be like, share our war stories. Yeah. And it would be just... It wasn't just happening to me, or I would have really felt like, wow, what am I doing to attract these kind of people? But it was happening to everybody. So
yes, it happens to everybody more than once, as you already know, because it's happened to you more than once. And it probably will happen to us until marriage, if that happens. But still, look what happened to Sam in the book. Some things happened to her. So maybe marriage doesn't rule out those mishaps either. So.
Right, exactly.
We can't say it ends there, but
no, the story continues.
The story does continue. And so this is your debut novel. Any plans in the works to either continue this as a series, or with any crossover characters, or what's next in store for you in the rom-com genre?
Yeah, I definitely have more stories to tell in that genre. I'm not sure if this story will continue or not. Like, part of me feels like it was such just an epic journey for her that, I don't know. I like the idea of, you just don't know, where does she go from here. Right. So so I'm not sure about that. but I definitely am in process with another book, and I do, as you may or may not have picked up in this book, I like the kind of dark comedy in my writing. That's just what I enjoy to write. Like I like to take sort of real life circumstances and situations, and I love writing about just flawed women. I feel like there's so many stories about how fabulous everybody is and how put together and how perfect every romance is. And I enjoy those stories too. I mean, I love that. I love to read that too. But I love, some of my favorite writers, and the stories that I love are the ones where the main character is just not perfect. And that I think as women, we, it's not all roses and cupcakes. It's we're dealing with a lot, and we're juggling a lot. And on some days we're just killing it. And on other days it's killing us. And so I think my stories will always have that element of just, non-perfect leading ladies and men. And I feel like there'll always be comedy in there, even though the story itself may be serious. So, but I think that is a romantic comedy. There's, romance and there's comedy. And so I definitely have another one in the works.
Well, yay. And that's life. We are flawed people, and then there's a little bit of comedy to our lives. I mean, sometimes we look at things and we're like, wow, somebody up there must really think this is funny, and and you kind of go with that. And so I think that as a reader makes stories more relatable when we can look at those characters and say, yeah, I have that same flaw, or I feel that same way. And that's what I like about romantic comedies or women's fiction or chick lit, is that some woman can relate to that character. And it's important that you still get your books where it's just so far-fetched that it's not reality at all. But then you have those ones where you're like, man, I feel that it touched me. And so that's why I like this book, because the whole dating thing, I get it. So you'll see that in my review later. Yeah,
and I like too that you picked up on the religious element in the story. Like, my hope was, I had friends, some that were raised Catholic, some that were raised Jewish, some that were raised in other faiths, and I kind of noticed a trend that each religion or faith has its own set of quirks to it. And so my hope was that the people would get see some of those similarities, or sort of the aftermath or fallout that comes with a certain kind of religious backdrop in your life, and relate to it in some level. Maybe not, it's not always like, the Catholics were infamous for our sex is taboo, another religion has its own kind of thing, but the people, so it was nice to hear that you kind of saw that I hope it's relatable on the family front too, that people, family relationships are laden with, all sorts of dysfunction and ups and downs and that sort of thing.
Yes, all of that's in there. Everybody who's listening and you haven't picked up the book yet, I recommend that you pick up the story, because there's something in there for everybody. I promise you, there's something in there. If you just want to laugh, if you think your family is crazy, there's something in there for you. You think your relationship is going through some stuff, trust me, she's kind of been there. And so you think you've been on a date that was weird and strange, yep, she's been there. Or if you just want to be free, you just want to be free and you want to enjoy being free, that's in there too. So and I can say that I've experienced all of that. So I could just say that I'm Sam. I'm just gonna go around and use, that's my new hashtag, I am Sam. Except I haven't been married, so I am partially Sam. I'm partial Sam, so
a side of Sam.
Yes, a side of Sam. There you go. That's my hashtag. But so I want to talk a little bit about how you got into writing the novel. I know a little bit about your background as a columnist, and so I want to know how did you kind of incorporate or take that jump or leap from writing your column and decide that you wanted to write a novel. And please tell everybody what you write about, because this was my favorite part of my research on you.
I write about wine and food. I live in Napa Valley, and I actually, before I moved up here, I was living in Los Angeles, and I worked in advertising and entertainment there. And I had a really good friend of mine, and we worked together for a film company, and it was another whole crazy tale that will most definitely morph itself into a book. But when I wanted to get out of LA, my friend kind of had it one day. She quit her job. She just couldn't take it. She worked for kind of the crazy person at the head of our company, and she moved to the Napa Valley and became a massage therapist, like a total about face. And so I would visit her. I would visit her up here, and I just kind of fell in love with it. It was sort of everything that big cities are not. And I grew up outside of Washington, D.C., and then I lived in New York and L.A. and always kind of big cities. And so I would visit her, and I just was like, wow, I love it out here, and I love the wine, and I love the country, but it's sort of Cosmo too, because there's all these amazing restaurants, and it's kind of a blend of like country. I say country and Cosmo, and I kind of fell in love with it, and then I'd go back to the crazy LA and the traffic and the whole scene there, and I was really kind of grappling with, okay, what do I want to do? And at a certain point, I did come to almost kind of like a wake up one day and decided, I've had it with the kind of the LA city scene. And my friend was living on a little vineyard, and I said, hey, what do you think about having a roommate for a little while? And I left my job in advertising, and I got the U-Haul truck, and I just came up here. And my goal was just to I wanted to live a writer's life. Like, I had worked the kind of corporate scene, and I just wanted to do that. Oh, go into the country and write. And so I moved up here with that intention. And I love wine and food. And so I knew, well, I would like to write about some of that while I'm here. And then I also thought it would be a great time to kind of, finish the book and just sort of really become a writer, like a working writer. And so I was really lucky when I first moved here. I met a pretty well-known winemaker out here. His name is Kirk Vengi, and his dad is really pretty famous in Napa Valley. He was the first person that got a 100-point score from the wine critic Robert Parker from the Wine Enthusiast. And so his son was, very well known as a result of that. And he just was this total, great country, totally friendly, like salt of the earth kind of guy. And he knew, I said, yeah, I want to write. And so he invited me to come work in Harvest, a season in Harvest, which it's an amazing time out here. It's actually going on right now. And if anybody out, listening is a wine fan, like all those sort of things you hear about Napa Valley during Harvest, it's amazing. You drive through a certain part of the valley, and it smells, you open your window and there's this whiff of grapes, of crushed grapes. And there's nothing quite like it. And so he invited me to work in Harvest with him, and then I ended up writing about it. And I wrote, when I came out here, all the wine writing is very, I like to say, techno wine geek speak. It's all these very highfalutin discussions about the tannins and full-bodied wine, and it rolls off the palate, and all these really intense things. And I just was like, almost some of these people have a stick up their ASS. When they talk about wine, I'm like, it's wine. I love to drink it. I love the taste of it. Exactly. I enjoy it. And so I felt like we need someone to write about wine that's not so serious, because I feel like it intimidates people. And there's, a whole nation filled with people that love wine, but not all the tech geeks speak. And so I started writing about it in a funny way and kind of poking fun at, all those high tech geek speakers, and went about it a different way. And I started, when I was covering Kirk in the opening of his winery, kind of first winery separate from his dad. I mean, I wrote about that in a serious way because he was launching a business.
Right.
But it just it sort of snowballed from there. And it's a small town, and there's over 400 or 500 wineries now out here. And so that I just started kind of picking up one thing after another thing. And I sort of, people that wanted a less serious way to talk about wine sort of enjoyed my sort of humorous take on it. So that's how the wine writing began, and it's kind of a perfect thing, because as a freelance writer, you kind of set your own schedule. And I found that I enjoyed, like, I still do copywriting for different wineries. I have a column for a local magazine here, North Bay Biz Magazine, and I cover the Napa region, write about wine and food and other business here. And then I also love to do the novel writing thing. And I just sort of slot my day. And depending on what hat I'm wearing, I'm writing comedy, fiction, or I'm writing wine, and I just can sort of toggle between all those things.
I love it. I love it because Napa is so pretty. My mom and I were out there a couple years ago for Brian Culberson's Wine and Jazz Festival. And,
oh, cool.
Yes, it was beautiful. It was a little chilly, which I can understand that. It's perfect for the grapes in the morning.
Yeah.
So it's a little different. But on another side, okay, everybody, FYI, Napa has no potholes. I'm just going to say, like, that was the first thing we noticed, like, on the highway and everything. It's like, there's no potholes out here. They have the best roads. And what I also like about it, you mentioned it, it's very different than the city. It's kind of small. It has a lot of character to it. You don't see a ton of franchised restaurants. There's a lot of, small businesses that's there. It's really, really beautiful. On the other side, we went to a little town called Calistoga. And
oh, yeah, that's where I live.
Is it? Okay, so let me tell you. So at Calistoga, they have the bike wine tours. And so we're riding, and I parked. And I don't know why this town reminded me of Mayberry, but I parked. And
it does.
I was 3 inches over the line when I parked. And I came back and I had a ticket. I got a ticket. I got a ticket in Calistoga on vacation because it says that I was 6 inches over the parking line. So, yeah, did they take out a tape measure? And so I was like, Mom, we got a ticket in Mayberry. And so...
They mean business. They mean business here.
And then when you go in to pay the ticket, it's like, we don't take debit cards. We only take cash. And so, yeah, it kind of set me back a little.
Yeah. And I'm surprised they would give the ticket. That does surprise me because it is kind of a Mayberry cowboy town. And yeah, I mean, the cops are really... If there was a bank robbery happening, you really wouldn't want the cops to be there defending you. It is. It's like Barney and Barney.
So you make sure
Barney 5.
Yes, you make sure when you're out there and you're just downtown that you don't park over the line because you just never know. Somebody's going to come by and give you a ticket. But I love that small town atmosphere. It's very beautiful out there, and just the fact that I'm really jealous that you're surrounded by so many vineyards and you get to just write about it. And I love the concept behind writing a column that's really, it's again my favorite word, relatable and down to earth, where people who just like to drink good wine can say, oh, Christina recommended this brand because she liked it and it was sweet, or she liked that it wasn't bitter, or that it paired well with such and such, versus like you said, everybody's swirling it around. And I'm like, the wine tastings, right? So I'll go to a wine tasting and you tell me if you understand this. And I don't want to swirl it around and smell it and sip it and spit it out. I want to drink it. And so that's my idea of a wine tasting, is to actually swallow it.
Yeah, it is. And I think most people, you're going wine tasting because you want to actually swallow it and taste the wine. I think the people that spit are like those, like Robert Parker, those people that like taste through 70 wines in one day, and they just they put it in there, swish it around, and then spit it back out. But I would say the majority of us, we like to go and taste it.
Yes, exact. Consume. We like to go to wine.
Yeah, consume. That's good. Yeah.
Yes, we like wine consumption parties. There you go.
Yes.
We're branding that, Christina.
Yeah, and one of my dreams is to do, like, I think it would be so fun, and I'm trying to work on that out here. So if you find yourself in Napa, you definitely have to look me up.
Okay.
I want to do, like, book signings that are, like, girls' night out wine tasting parties.
Yes.
Like, I think Emily Giffen or someone did that kind of thing, and I was like, oh, my God, that's, like, such a great idea, because it's just, like, a fab night with wine and chatting about books and just girls getting together and, chatting it up.
And cupcakes.
Sounds like a lot of fun for
the wine.
And cupcakes, exactly.
Yes. That's it. Plan that. I will make sure
I know. All right. Yeah, I need to get at work on that because I think it just would be totally fun. And I'm all about cupcakes and wine. I think it's a good pairing.
What's a favorite wine of yours? And are you more of a red, white, dessert, sparkling? What's your thing?
My favorite, I'm definitely a red wine drinker. I mean, I like it all. I like all the every category you mentioned, I like. But I'm definitely a red. And I think the longer I've lived here, the more I, continue to kind of gravitate towards red wine. And my favorite has to be that winemaker I mentioned, Kirk Bengi. I feel like, for me, he makes what I think is some of the best wines in all of Napa Valley. Just if you like really intense, bold red wines, like it's not light like a Pinot. It's Cabernet and really Charbonneaus, like really, heady kind of intense wines that are really very drinkable also. So it's kind of, I've yet to taste one of his wines, and he does a lot of consulting winemaking with several different vineyards. He has his own wine, but he makes wine for probably 60 other wineries out here, and I can always tell when I'm drinking one of his wines because it's just that good. It's just really amazing. So that's probably a favorite. But I also, in the summer it gets, in Calistoga in particular, it gets super hot. Like, I mean, we had like over 100-degree days for a pinch, and so then I love Sauvignon Blancs are another favorite when it's hot out. That's probably kind of another go-to wine that I love, and bubbles, of course, you can never go wrong, especially with cupcakes. I think to me, that's my favorite pairing is champagne or sparkling wine with cupcakes. I just think is a fun thing to do.
That sounds good, and I'm really hungry and thirsty right now. So sparkling wine and a sparkling wine and a cupcake right now would be amazing with like buttercream frosting and.
Oh yes. We have a lot in common, Jacques.
Yes. Okay, with the exception that I have yet to find a red wine that I like. So I'm still searching the hunt is on for the perfect red wine. So that's something we should work on. Finding the perfect red.
Yes. Yeah. And I think it is one of those kind of, I used to be really not a big red wine fan. I definitely was more into white wines, but then little by little the red started creeping in. But I do think it's finding what you particularly like. Like a Zinfandel is sometimes kind of a nice bridge between and a red, there's like pink Zinfandel, white Zinfandel, which is actually pink, but like a Zinfandel that's a red Zinfandel. And it's kind of like a bridge between people that want something a little not as light as a Pinot, but not as intense as a Cabernet. And it can be really fruity. And so sometimes that's like a good sort of segue wine for someone that's like not totally into red wine, but wants to experiment. Sometimes I say that's a good place to start because it's fruity and light, but yet it's still got a lot going on in there. So that might be something to try.
That makes sense. I've done the Zinfandel. I've also had I think it's white Merlot or red Merlot. It's a Merlot that kind of looks like a white Zinfandel, but a little bit darker. I don't know what that is, but I don't know. Have you had that?
Yeah, I don't.
It's pretty good.
I mean, I've had just Merlot that's kind of in it's intensity wise in the Cabernet family, but I don't know if maybe it was a sparkling rendition of it potentially. I don't know.
It wasn't sparkly, but it looks like Zinfandel. But anyway, I could go on and on and on and talk to you about wine, because books and wine and cupcakes. I mean, you got me.
I know. Yeah. Let's take that show on the road.
Yes, you should definitely look into having that girls' night book and wine party with a side of cupcakes or something like that. So that would
I need to work on that.
Yes.
Stay tuned, everybody. Stay tuned.
Yes, stay tuned, everybody. And also, because today is Christina's debut of her book, it's releasing, she also has a party, Facebook party, because, hey, you can't bring everybody to Napa. We wish we could all go to Napa and party with her. But she's having a Facebook party today to celebrate the debut of The Dating Bender. So how would they find it on Facebook? Is it a public event?
Yeah, I'm having a couple of them, and it's public, but you have to be kind of a part of the group. So one of the groups, it's the Red Coat Reader Facebook group is one party, and that party is it's at 7:00 East Coast time. Okay. 4:00 my time. And then there's another party happening at the One Click Addicts reader group, and so it's the One Click Addicts support group, and so you can this morning you can go and you can request to join the group, and then you can join the party. And I'm going to be doing giveaways and just fun games, online games, and might go live a little bit in there, and I'm sort of planning for the parties to sort of tread some of the ground that we're treading, like to do fun things related to wine and dating, swapping some dating stories. And I'm going to, do giveaways. I might even be doing a giveaway for some wine, some Dating Bender wine. I have done up some Dating Bender wine. So I think it's going to be fun.
Well, I'm there. You had me at wine and games and back again with wine. So I will be at all the parties. So you'll see me popping in and out. And also, how can our listeners get in touch with you, or how can they find you on social media?
On social media, if you look at Christina Julian, like my author kind of fan page is Christina Julian Author. So you can find me there. And then on Twitter, it's Christin, Christin _ and then Julian, my last name, Julian. So you can find me. I'm often tweeting and Facebooking all the time. Okay. And then on my website, ChristinaJulian.com is, where, I kind of post everything, any events that are going on. I have a bunch of kind of signings and things happening all over the Bay Area out here where I live. And then I'm going to be hitting the road some too. So you can kind of find me in all those places.
We love it. So remember that you can find her pretty much everywhere under her name, except for there's the Twitter one is not Christina, it's Kristen _
right,
her last name, and it's Kristen with the Christina with the C.
CH, so, CHRISTINA on Twitter, CHRISTIN.
Mm-hmm. And so you said that you were going to be hitting the road. So any events that we can find you at in or around the area before the year's over?
Yeah. And I'll just shout out a few of the things, and then my website does a big list of them. But in October, I'm going to be at a big literary event called Litquake in San Francisco on the 8th of October. And it's a pretty cool, anyone that's listening from the Bay Area, you probably heard of it. There's like a big lit crawl that's like a bar crawl, but it's all literary readings throughout the city. And then I'm on a panel that's called Catching the First Big Break. So I'm with 5 other writers who are all debut writers. And, we're talking about our journey, our rocky road to publication journey. And then I'm doing next year, I have some events. I'm doing a signing in Sacramento, where there's a bunch of other authors joining me. And then I'm doing a Golden Gate event in San Francisco. Am I rambling too much? I can never tell. No. I've probably been rambling all day long.
I like that you're going to be in California. I need to try to get out there because I haven't been to that. Outside of Napa, I haven't been to the Bay Area. I haven't been, to San Francisco, any of those places. Everything.
Yeah.
I've been to LA and places, but I want to see the other the other places too.
Yeah,
so.
and LA and San Francisco are really. I'm doing a signing in LA in next summer in June, but LA and San Francisco are like polar opposites. Really, it's kind of like New York and LA are very different. So it's a totally. I sort of like in San Francisco. Is closer to New York as far as kind of this type of city vibe versus LA. Even though you can drive easily from, well, it's a long drive, but you can drive from LA to San Francisco, and I mean it's depending on traffic, it could take you 5 hours or 12. But the vibe is totally different. Like
Right.
So yeah, you should definitely come out. You should come out.
I should. I'm putting it on my list that I need to go out to San Francisco area or back to Napa and hang out with you and do some wine consumption. So
yes, I can definitely show you around the neighborhood from here to San Francisco.
That sounds
tasting
like
wine along the way.
Yes,
and
that
we'll
sounds
have
like
someone else drive for us.
Exactly. Yeah, we'll have to have a driver, and we'll do a whole live video about our shenanigans with wine consumption and cupcakes. So
yes. I love this. Yeah,
on the road with Christina and Jock. That's it.
yeah. Attacking everything one cupcake and glass of wine at a time.
Yes, that goes with booking around town. So I love it. So you heard it here, folks. We're going to plan something next year. So you just stay tuned and you find out. You'll find out when we know, and we'll invite you into our secret shenanigans around town with wine and cupcakes. And we'll throw in chats about a couple of books too, because of course we have to bring our books with us. So
don't leave home without those.
Don't leave home without the books. Well, congratulations again, Christina, on the release of your debut novel. And now tell everybody where it can be found for those who wanted to pick up a copy.
You can pick it up on Amazon and then in select stores, and then it's going to be on other platforms also, Barnes and Noble and Nook and Apple and all of that. So you can always go to my website, and then it'll shoot you out to whatever kind of platform you want to find it on.
Sounds good. Well, everybody, be sure that you go and visit Christina's website at ChristinaJulian.com, where you can find more information about her debut novel, also information about what she's doing with her column. If you enjoy food and wine, or if you just enjoy wine, either way, you can find out where you can kind of stalk her column as well. And be sure that you are following us everywhere, Booking Around Town on Facebook, Booking Around Town on Instagram, and also Booking Around TWN on Twitter. And be sure to follow us in all those places so you can get up-to-date information about what guests we will have on the show and where we will be live events-wise. Again, special thanks to today's guest, Christina.
And thank to you, Jacques. I had so much fun booking around with you. It was a blast.
You're so welcome. You are invited back to the show anytime before I see you in California. So we will be following up with you, looking for your next release, and then we'll have you back on the show.
All right. Thanks so much for inviting me.
You're welcome.
Have a great day.
You too. And special shout out to my producer, Danielle at Firefly Productions, and my assistant, Rebecca. Thanks, everybody, for joining us for Booking Around Town. Until next time, remember, keep booking.